Hello, Liverpool fans. Welcome to the Liverpool Reaction, an American LFC podcast. Coach Ralph and I are excited to bring you this podcast. From games to players to club news, we cover everything LFC. You can find us on every platform and YouTube. Please take a second to follow or subscribe to the podcast. That way, you know when the latest podcast is up. Thank you for listening, and now on to the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Liverpool Reaction, an American LFC podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Salim, and I'm joined by my co-host every week, Coach Ralph. Coach, how are we doing today?
I am doing fine, Salim. Absolutely no soccer now with the international season completed, and I guess we have to start looking forward to the next season.
Yeah, big changes in our team, and it's going to be exciting to see what happens. But let's start with the Euro final and England versus Spain. We had spoken last week with Jeff, and not to gloat, but I thought Spain was going to win, and you guys thought England might be able to snatch it away. It was a really good game. The Cole Palmer goal I thought was fantastic. Lamine Yamal still impresses. I mean, at 17 years old, I think he turned 17 on Saturday, the day before the final. Nico Williams creating havoc, and some guy I never heard of scores the winner.
Okay.
But Coach, what were your feelings about the game? What did you? What were some things that you kind of picked up on?
Well, the best team won. I think there's no question about that. They were the better team on the day, and overall through the tournament, I think everybody agrees that Spain was the best team. So it was deserved from that point of view. I thought England might win purely. I mean, they've not played well. I mean, I think that's been pretty well identified by pundits and fans alike. England didn't play well throughout the entire tournament, but they were having all these moments, and they do have talent, and it just felt like they were going to win, even though they weren't playing particularly well. And indeed, when they equalised through Palmer, through Cole Palmer, I thought that they were going to win again, because for a few minutes, Spain actually looked a bit shell-shocked because they'd been on top in the second half, and then out of nothing, Cole Palmer scores, and it's shades of Bellingham, it's shades of Saka, it's shades of Watkins, players that pulled the rabbit out of the hat in previous rounds, and it seemed that Cole Palmer had done that as well, but suddenly England returned to type and they became cautious, and every time that they became cautious, that just played into the Spanish hands, and they were excellent in midfield. They have the two boys out wide, and they won it.
Yeah, I was up in Breckenridge watching the game at a pub called Ollie's, and I made friends with the family next to us who were in town from Barbados. Their kids were in town to play a soccer tournament, and then they went up to Breckenridge to spend some family time. And so we're watching the game. Both the kids have Bellingham jerseys. They're probably, I don't know, maybe 13 and 10, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I started chatting with them and asked them what their favorite team was. Sad to report that they were Chelsea fans, but they knew the game very well, and they were dead set on England winning. And when Cole Palmer scored, these boys were screaming and shouting. And then in the 86th minute, when Oyar, I can't even say his name. It's Oyarzabal?
Something like that.
Yeah, Oyarzabal scored, and they were like, that's got to be offsides, and the TV didn't do a very great job of showing that until a couple minutes later, but they were devastated. And It's funny when Palmer scored. You know how he does the thing with his arms, like he's cold, that kind of thing.
Uh,
So I was doing that with them. They were, it was you know, Spain, like you said, Spain's been the best team, and it's funny because in the Copa America, I thought Colombia were the best team throughout the tournament. So I was backing Colombia as well, and we'll get to that in a second. But Gareth Southgate resigned, I think, yesterday, and it's Coach. Why is it? Is it Southgate's strategy to kind of get into a shell like that? Why isn't there more dynamic type of play from these players? I mean, not to take anything away from Spain, they were fantastic, but what does England need? Because they have the players and they have a great bench. It just what's missing there? That's 2 Euro finals in a row, so that's a good place to start. That's a good place to build from. But what's going on?
I would say that while Southgate is a cautious coach, I think there's a little bit of a mental block as well with England players over the years, and the pressure that they come under from the media, one way or another, and they're constantly reminding whatever the current squad is that it's so many years since they won the World Cup. And in a funny way, it goes back to the '96 Euros when the Lightning Seeds, a Liverpool band, I should point out, released a record. It's Coming Home, which every time that England's doing well, that song seems to surface again. And I believed that the lyric in '96 was 30 years of hurt. And of course, now it's up to 58 years of hurt.
Oh, man.
And so it's kind of like the revolving door, and it just keeps going on and on and on. So I think there's a little bit of psychology in it, but no question that Gareth Southgate is a defensive coach. And I think we might have said last week that it might be interesting to have the same group of players coached by somebody who's a little more offensively inclined, and maybe has a philosophy that offense, attack is the best form of defense.
Yeah.
Because England do fall back into their shell. And if you analyze Spain for all their quality, maybe the one area where they are lacking is that they don't have a David Villa, they don't have a Fernando Torres anymore as a central striker. I think that Morata is a good player, and he certainly had a good tournament, but I don't know if he's quite at the level of Villa and Torres. So that, in a sense, is the weakness. And so maybe if they're pushed back, maybe that exposes that weakness a little bit more because they're having to concentrate more on defense.
Yeah.
But, of course, that's something that we'll never know. And what happens next, we wait with bated breath to see.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about Klopp last week as well. And it seems like the U.S. put out some feelers and Klopp declined to, I think, he talked to them and said he's not ready to come back. And now England's probably going to have their crack at him. But it seems like Jurgen is just doesn't want to do anything for a while. And the way he coaches, the way he pours everything into a team, I can understand that. So let's take Klopp out of it. Is there a coach of some sort that is offensive minded that can take England to the next level?
The names that are being put forward, and I'm sure that you're familiar, the top English coaches right now would be Eddie Howe at Newcastle, Graham Potter, who hasn't coached since he left Chelsea, but I think is a very good coach.
Yeah, I agree. I like him.
And then you've got people like Steve Cooper, who's just started at Leicester. He's Welsh, but he took the I can't remember whether it was in the 17 team. I believe it was a few years ago. He took them to the World Cup title at that age group. And if you're looking at Spain, they used a manager, De La Fuente, who nobody really knew that much about, and that's in his own country, but he'd had success at the younger ages and consequently was familiar with all these young players that he's got on the squad right now because they'd played for him. Mm-hmm. So those are a couple of contenders. And then, of course, you've got players like Frank Lampard and, of course, Liverpool's Steven Gerrard, who've had a crack at management and have been regarded as failures, but have kind of they are mythical or top players from another era. So, yeah, these are the English names that are being put forward. And of course, you mentioned Jurgen Klopp and of course Pep Guardiola. These would be dream selections potentially, from a media perspective and a fan perspective as well. I would have to believe. Mm-hmm. There's Pochettino who is out of a job right now and has experience in the English game. I thought he did well both at Southampton and at Tottenham. Chelsea improved last season.
Yeah, they did.
Which maybe gets overlooked to some degree because it's pretty much of a mess. What the new ownership did and has done, and I see that they've already signed another 6 players this summer. So I guess their formula is just keep on signing players and throwing mud against the wall, and whoever the manager is, good luck. Yeah. So I think Pochettino would be a good choice, and even though you're right, a Klopp off or even a Guardiola, I think they will sound them out. And one thing that might be intriguing could be to have an interim manager and wait for somebody like a Klopp or a Guardiola. I mean, like they're saying it's Guardiola's last year, potentially, or it's rumoured. And I think these managers might be attracted to England, Guardiola especially, because he might feel that there's a chance of winning. And I think he only takes on jobs just if he feels that he can win. So if they went for an interim, they actually have somebody ready-made in Lee Carsley, who again has had success with England's younger teams. I know that Brazil had Ancelotti lined up, and they had an interim, and then at the last minute, as they went through the Ancelotti backed out because he wasn't happy with some of the circumstances. But would the Football Association be willing to do something like that to get an absolute elite manager? I wouldn't be surprised if they sound it out. Doesn't mean it's going to work. So then the question becomes, well, who do they take? And I think logically, it would be between Howe, Pochettino, and Graham Potter. Howe has a problem in as much as they would probably have to buy Newcastle off. The other two are unattached right now, so might be relatively straightforward guys to bring on board.
With Graham Potter's, performance at Brighton versus the team's performance at Chelsea, is it a certain type of personality that needs to be leading England? Somebody a little bit more fiery, somebody Southgate, he talks very calmly, very he takes his lumps from the media in the post games, and he just kind of, trudges along. And is a Graham Potter kind of similar as that versus a Pochettino
Yes.
that might be a little bit more fiery, that might be, pushing back on the English media a little bit more, and a little bit more. The flamboyant comes to mind, but that's not the word I'm looking for. I guess fiery is more the word I use that is kind of defining what I'm trying to say here.
I think one thing that the Euros showed was England had a fortuitous draw, and basically that's the reason that they got to the final, combined with the fact that they do have players that can, as I said earlier, pull the rabbit out of the hat, because that happened on about 4 occasions to move the team on after pretty dour performances. But I think coming into the final, when they actually got there, I think that if England had won, I mean, just say Palmer equalises and then they do actually capitalise on it and win. Whilst I think everybody knew that England performed in a poor fashion, I think the fact that they won kind of negates everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that you can get a really top attacking type of manager, and they may not be quite so fortunate with the draw.
Mm-hmm.
So they may not reach a final or even a semi-final because at the World Cup they come up against an Argentina or a Brazil, and they give them a good game, but they don't win.
Right.
And so they fall at the quarterfinals or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't matter whether it's a Guardiola or a Klopp or something. I think the fans and we'd have to see what the media would do, but certainly the fans will give whoever's in charge a difficult time. But as I say, the Euros this year, England made the final, but I thought, and I think I have many people who would agree, I thought they were awful.
Yeah.
I really did, and the draw plus some of the unusual talent that they have on the team was the thing that actually got them to the final, rather than any kind of tactical nous or anything in that department.
Coach, do you think, it's interesting, right? Because what you're kind of describing here is performance versus result, right? And as Liverpool fans, Klopp always talked about the performance. The results will come, but always talked about the performance. Even in some losses or some tie games, he talked about the performance was good, so he was happy with that. Now, with England, it almost feels like damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Well, this team made the final, but this team plays more attractive and maybe loses in the quarterfinals. Are they both going to get hammered the same way? And it sounds like, yeah, probably they'll get hammered.
Probably, yeah.
And what is it about the English media that for some reason piles all this pressure on this team and these players? And I mean, it's almost like Southgate plays defense. Well, he was a defender also, so the defensive style, but also kind of doesn't want anybody to make a mistake, and versus trying to win it versus trying not to lose it. And it's just weird that the media kind of piles all this pressure on these guys, and but I guess they're trying to sell articles and internet whatever. So, but it's just really strange how that media just doesn't get behind that team at all.
Well, I wouldn't say that they don't get behind them. I think, as I keep saying, the performances were so poor this particular tournament, and with each successive tournament under Gareth Southgate's reign, expectations have been raised because they have gone far. And really, the golden opportunity that they had was the previous Euros, where They pretty much played the whole tournament at home. They had a good draw. They played Italy in the final, and it wasn't a great Italian team. Mm-hmm. They scored early, and then they surrendered the initiative. But it's at Wembley. It's at Wembley. England's the home team.
Yeah.
And so expectations kind of rise from tournament to tournament. And I think there was no disguising this time just how poorly England played. But conversely, they kept advancing. It was kind of weird.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with you. I think Pochettino would be a breath of fresh air over there. And like you said, he improved that Chelsea team. I thought he was wrongly let go. I thought he was on the right track. That team, had some injuries as well. But, I mean, what a star Cole Palmer is. And, he proved it on the international stage. And they have a Manchester City must be kicking themselves because that kid's a star.
Right, but I think Cole Palmer wanted to leave. And I think that's a recurring thing. If you actually analyse the Guardiola players he's had since he's been at Manchester City, there's quite a few players have left before their time potentially. I mean, Spain had Laporte at the back, and the year that Liverpool won the league and City came second, the excuse was that their best defender, Laporte, was injured. And so I think Palmer wanted to go because basically he wanted to play. And I think from that perspective, his decision has been vindicated because he had a great season with Chelsea. He's pushed his way into the England team, and he's shown at this tournament that he can impact a game.
Yeah, no, I understand he wanted to leave, but I think that, maybe Guardiola could have done a little bit more to kind of bring him along. And with some of the players they lost last year, it seemed like a good opportunity. But Cole Palmer is definitely vindicated. But I think even in that team, I mean, you're talking about him and Foden and Haaland. I mean, that trio right there would be devastating. But anyway, we're glad we don't have to deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
Copa America. It was a tale of two halves for me. I thought Colombia played pretty well in the first half, and Argentina just mucked it up the whole second half. They were going down. They were staying down for a while. I mean, when Messi got hurt, he rolled 3 times to get back onto the field, so they had to stop the game. They really just kind of brought the game to a grinding halt, and then Martinez in the 112th minute scores a goal that, to me, seemed like the Colombian goalkeeper ducked his head out of the way. I mean, it was a good shot, but it would have hit the goalie right in the face if he did not just kind of like move his head out of the way. What were your feelings of the game?
Well, Colombia was definitely the team on top in the first half, and overall have had a good tournament. They looked like a good team, well coached, positive style. But I think after the interval, the experience of the Argentinians kind of stymied them to some degree in a funny way. And having watched the game and, having heard, a lot of people talk, it seems that Messi is on the decline. I mean, he's still capable of brilliance. But a lot of people felt that Argentina actually started to do better once he went off. And I mean, they've got a lot of great players. So they may have one of the greats of all time still playing in Lionel Messi, but there's a lot of quality on that Argentina team, one of which I'm glad to say plays for Liverpool in McAllister.
Yeah.
But I just felt the experience of the Argentinians was too much. And I don't think Colombia has a finisher. For all the good play, you don't have a striker that they can really, really count on. I mean, you can look at Diaz, who plays for Liverpool. I mean, he scores his share of goals, but I don't think you could say he's a clinical forward in terms of his finishing. Mm-hmm. But he can score goals, and he can sometimes score spectacular goals. But he's not, he's not your go-to goal scorer.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. The experience of Argentina really, really stymied Colombia. There was time, Coach, when that game went into extra time. I was begging for them to pull McAllister and Luis Diaz off the field. I mean, I know, but I was like, get them off. I mean, they looked exhausted, and that Miami Heat and that humidity, I mean, those jerseys were sticking to them. And so I was glad that they pulled both players, because I could just see something going wrong in that heat where, you're not just sweating out just sweat. I mean, nutrients and, like all sorts of stuff is coming out of your body. And that heat is incredibly difficult to play with, especially with that humidity. So I was really glad that both players got pulled off and didn't injure themselves, because that game was that heat really impacted that game.
Right, and I know that this is a concern with the World Cup coming back to the USA again, because casting the mind back to '94 was the heat in some of the games. And the games was played during the day as well because of the European markets and what have you. That was an evening game, wasn't it, in Miami? And still it was oppressive.
Yeah.
So it'll be very demanding for the players. And I think for the Liverpool players that play both at the Euros and the Copa America, and in some ways even more with the Copa America, because of the sheer temperatures that they've had to play in. I think players playing in the Premier League will have to be eased back in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they need a good break now, and then when they return, I think Arne Slot will have to ease his players back in terms of getting them up to game speed again, Premier League pace, and introducing them into the team. I mean, I don't think McAllister and Diaz necessarily will be starters at the beginning. Although, it's not my call, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gives them roles off the benches for a while, and then after time, they will assume their position as a starter.
Well, we're 1 month from the start of the Premier League. Mm-hmm. So these players will go on vacation, holiday for at least a couple of weeks, right, Coach?
Yeah, at least 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And remember that you've got all the travel as well. I mean, if they're both going back to South America, spend some time there, and then they come back to England, and yeah, I mean, I don't think either of them are going to connect with Liverpool while they're on tour, but I say that without being sure. I'd be surprised if they did. I think some of the players like Robertson and Szoboszlai might. I don't know if they're back in training yet, but I think Liverpool's been back. Is it for 1 or 2 weeks now?
Yeah. I saw like clips of Szoboszlai and back at.
Are they back at the first team squad? So. Yeah, they are. Okay. So like they're starting to bring them back bit by bit, and so you've got basically the players that went the furthest: Holland, England, and Colombia, Argentina. Yeah, so the players from those countries will be the last to come back. And yeah, I mean, it's a problem not just for Liverpool, it's basically for all the top teams in the Premier League.
Right. Saying that, we probably have to give, Coach Slot another, a little bit of leeway here at the beginning too, right? Not having a full, off season to really integrate his ideas and his style and, the differences from Klopp. And so I think as fans here, we have to be, like the first month, first 4-6 games, we might have to really just kind of see what we can do. And if results, if we get some results, great. But I think as fans, we're going to have to be a little bit patient, especially with, some of these pretty influential players on the team not being able.
I think we're going to have to be very patient. Because I think it is difficult for a new manager because he's getting to know the players. Right now, he's working with a lot of the younger players, but a lot of his experience and pretty much all his experience and top players, except for Mohamed Salah, are away or have been away. And of course, they have to resolve the Mohamed Salah situation. I think it would be mad to keep him on for a year if he's not going to sign a new contract. Yeah. I don't see the sense in that. I don't see the sense. But that's not my call. It's not your call. And let's just wait and see what happens.
Yeah, with Salah kind of having a free summer, chances are that his legs, he's been rejuvenated. People kind of mentioned about Holland. He had kind of an easy summer from a standpoint that, he wasn't in the Euros. He didn't have any international duty. So it's kind of interesting to see if Salah is staying with the team and if he gets off to a quick start, because that could be pretty important for the Liverpool team. Now, Coach, we had McAllister, Alisson, Darwin, and Luis Diaz at the Copa America. How did you feel that they all did? We kind of touched on McAllister. He played really well. We talked about Luis Diaz. How about Alisson and Darwin? Because Darwin had, that was a situation. He was up in the crowd throwing punches because I guess the security and the team, the family members of. I understood. At first I was like, what the heck is he doing? And then as they were saying, oh, his family was there, then I said, okay, I would be okay with that. And I'm sure Liverpool is going to have a conversation with him, because it kind of reminds you of that basketball game back in the 2000s when the players went up into the stands and just started, punching fans. And so I don't think it was to that extent, but something's going to have to, they're going to have to talk to him about it. And I personally am okay with it, because we're talking about his family, and there was pictures of him holding his boy after. And I can just imagine how insane that was. And then in the final, Coach, Jesus Christ, the fans are rushing the gates. They're going through vents. They're climbing up scaffolding. It was madness. So it kind of puts the perspective of what happened to Uruguay and their family and the players going up there to kind of protect them, because there was a lack of protection and the Colombian fans were being, insulting, I guess. But anyway, how'd you feel about Darwin?
Well, I think looking at the controversy, one thing that I found very interesting, and I saw how it was reported here in Boston on the news, and they talked about at the end of the game, some of the Uruguay players went up into the crowd to confront the Colombian fans. And so they talked about Uruguay players. In the English media, it was Darwin Núñez went into the crowd. So it was kind of a totally different flavor. It wasn't just Darwin Núñez that went into the crowd. I don't know how many went up, but it wasn't just Núñez. So I don't know how that'll all pan out. Clearly there were crowd issues in Miami, and I believe that the problem the next day was that the fans without tickets were able to get up to the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think in a lot of games now, you have to go through barriers to actually get even close to the stadium. So that was an oversight. I mean, I can remember going to the 1978 European Cup final at Wembley, and in those days there were no barriers either, so all the fans could get close to the stadium. And I was there early, and fans are climbing in. So it wasn't thousands like it was down in Miami, but yeah. So I think that's going to be lesson learned for the World Cup.
Yeah.
Like they can't let things like that happen again. In terms of his play and everything, he certainly had an impact to some degree, but there's always this thing about him missing chances. He scores goals, no question. He causes a lot of havoc, no question. But he's not a clinical finisher. He's not a clinical finisher. I think sometimes people forget that he's young still. It's not like he's 28, 29. He's in his early 20s still, and he's hot-headed. Obviously, he can get emotional. So he has some maturing to do, and it'll be interesting to see whether that can happen over the next couple of years. I think we've said before that we'd like to see him play at Anfield, or stay at Anfield. So I think he had a good tournament, but some of the same old issues that we had during the season were still present. Alisson, I find it hard to judge Alisson because overall it was a disappointing performance by Brazil, and that was nothing to do with Alisson. It was just to do with the team in general. Again, a team with a lot of talent, but they just don't seem to have gelled, and maybe that's partially to do with the fact that they were counting, as I'd noted earlier, about Ancelotti coming, and then he didn't come. So yeah, there's a little bit of a hangover there, I would say. It's hard to judge Alisson. McAllister had a good tournament. He's a consistent performer. Word is that he's knackered. He needs some rest. And I have a feeling he'll have to be eased back in. Diaz, is very dynamic. Absolutely no question about that. Colombia, I would agree, probably over the tournament was the best team, but they didn't have the experience that Argentina, the older, more experienced heads of Argentina had, and that's what got them over the line in the end. So Diaz, I think the question of Diaz is he going to stay or is he going to go?
Yeah.
So again, we have to wait and see about that. If he stays, I mean, he's an asset. If he goes, they've got to get good money so that they bring in a good replacement. And of course, the transfer situation at Liverpool is interesting because in contrast to previous years, there's not much happening. But I have to believe that if Diaz did go, that they would be forced to go into the market to bring somebody.
Yeah. I thought Darwin played just how classic Darwin, creates chaos, scores a couple goals, misses some sitters. You mentioned a little hot-headed. And then Lucho, I think very similar, maybe could have put a couple more away, but, I think he had a goal. He was, patrolling down that left sideline pretty well. So it was kind of like what we expect and what we kind of see from them at Liverpool. So now to the European, the Euro 2024 Liverpool players that played was Gakpo. He had a good tournament. Virgil van Dijk, Szoboszlai, Robo, Jota, and Trent.
Well, I believe Gakpo got into the team of the
He
tournament.
did, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So it was a great tournament for him. It was a great tournament for him, and I guess if Diaz did go, that would open up the possibility of him being a regular starter playing on the left. So
yeah.
that would be interesting.
I would love to see Nico Williams at Liverpool if Luis Diaz left. I thought he was really really just a menace down the left side in every game I watched them play.
Mm-hmm.
Out of the players other than Gakpo was definitely a standout. Trent, they tried him at midfield and he kind of got a lot of flack. I don't think you can, put too many, think about that too hard or too much. We know who he is as a player. Jota, because of Ronaldo, didn't play all that much. And then Robertson and Szoboszlai. Szoboszlai was, Hungary's best player, tried everything, just wasn't able to drag his team to the knockout rounds. And Robertson kind of, just Scotland wasn't strong enough. So out of those players, it's good that Szoboszlai and Robertson are back. And at least, if it was just 3 games and all the preparation that comes with that. But anybody else stand out for you? It's really just Gakpo, right?
Well, of the Euros, I think Gakpo was the standout player, and then in Van Dijk solid, Gravenberch didn't play, Gomez didn't play, Vítězslav Jaros, who I believe has been promoted to Liverpool's number 3 goalkeeper, he didn't play for the Czech Republic.
Konate didn't play.
Canate didn't play, so so a lot of them didn't play. I think the Liverpool players playing in this country in the Copa America had more success because they all played and they all played a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think really only Gakpo, Van Dijk. I think they're the only ones. Robertson and Szoboszlai, of course, who are on weaker teams. I think that they were the only ones that saw significant game time at the Euros. I think the rest were all backups, really. So yeah, a lot of them didn't have the greatest time, I would guess. And like you, I felt sorry for Alexander-Arnold. And it'll be interesting to see what his fate is if a more attacking-minded coach comes in. How he will or won't figure for the national team. Yeah. So I guess that's to be determined. But anyway, look, these are all good players. I was surprised. Gomez, Gomez didn't get a look. But again, I guess he's not had the best luck with Gareth Southgate because he's picked up a couple of serious injuries in the Southgate era, going to England training camps, which have affected his time at Liverpool. And then there was the incident with Raheem Sterling, which it was Sterling that was rightly penalised, but I guess Gomez was the victim, as it were. And yeah, I think that if you're going to play 3 at the back, I think Gomez is a good guy to turn to. He's got a lot of Champions League experience as well as Premier League because he's fast. And he plays a lot on the left for Liverpool, even though he's not a natural left footer. I think he's more likely to use his left foot than Trippier. Trippier was constantly turning inside for his right, and I think that was a huge blunder by the manager on that one. Okay, he brought Shaw, and Shaw was able to come in, but I think he should have brought more left-sided players.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was his call.
Which last thing, out of there's a lot of games with the Copa America and the European Championship. Is there one or two players that you looked at and said, I would love that guy at Liverpool?
I think the player that I quite liked, and I think Arsenal are kind of haggling to get him, is the Italian centre back, Calafiori.
Yeah,
That's how it's pronounced. Yeah, left-sided, young, good on the ball, and I think he'd play. I have a feeling if he came to Liverpool, he'd probably play more than he would if he went to Arsenal, because they have an established back two. I don't think Liverpool does. And of course, one of the main items on the shopping list, as it were, logically would be a left-sided defender. I thought he was very good. And of course, you mentioned Nico Williams. Nico Williams is excellent and an exciting player. I think Liverpool might have inquired and possibly thrown their hat into the ring, but I think there's lots of hats being thrown into the ring for Nico Williams. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and I think it's something for future weeks to talk about where Liverpool's transfer policy is going for the year, because some of the players they've been rumoured to be interested in, they don't seem to be chasing them hard. So if that's the case, I guess there's significant reasons for that. Possibly something to do with the transition in terms of the manager. Possibly something to do with the fact that Liverpool do have a good squad. And something else that might be a factor is, I think the FSG, in some ways, in the current world, is a little old-fashioned. Not that that has to be a bad thing, but they're old-fashioned in the sense that I think that they want their academy to produce first-team players. Whereas I think that a lot of the academies now, that they produce players to sell. And I mean, Liverpool does that as well, because I think they're going to sell a few this summer and recoup some money. But I still think, that their ideal would be to have about four academy players playing regularly for the first team. Don't know how realistic it is, but that is the sense that I guess when it comes to FSG. I mean, it saves them a lot of money if they could do that. It saves them a heck of a lot of money.
Yeah. The one last thing with that, did you see they pulled out, or the talks ended with them supposedly interested in buying Bordeaux? FSG and Bordeaux have called off the talks.
Oh, I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that.
Just interesting that how that would have figured into Liverpool. But anyway, Coach, it was a summer full of soccer, and our players did pretty well, especially in Copa America. And congratulations to McAllister and Argentina, and congratulations to Spain. It was fun to watch, but 1 month from today, the 17th, we will be on to Ipswich, and I'm excited to see what this next month will bring.
Yeah, I think we all wait with bated breath. There's a little bit of the unknown this year, obviously, for clear reasons, but yeah, you always look forward to the next season, don't you?
Yeah. And Coach, I want to thank you again for your insights, and Liverpool fans, we're just a month away, and we're excited to bring more content to you guys as things kind of pop up. So we will talk to you guys next time, and take care, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Liverpool fans, thank you so much for listening to the Liverpool Reaction, an American LFC podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show and would greatly appreciate your support. Please leave a 5-star review, and feel free to email us at tlrlfcpodcast@gmail.com. Looking forward to hearing from you. Till next time.